Hi, guys. Thanks for joining. This is Essence of Medicine. Today we're talking about the doctor shortage. I'm Amanda Armagast.
I'm Carlos Dabu.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence. Why did you choose this topic, Amanda?
I don't know exactly why I chose the topic. It's kind of been on the top of my mind for a little bit because we've been doing a lot of not recruiting per se, but talking to different doctors. And I've noticed quite a pattern with things that every doctor that is stopping to be a doctor or leaving their hospital kind of has in common. And since you are a doctor and Carlos is an admin, I thought that this would be a good group to talk about the doctor shortage.
Absolutely.
Actually, I heard that I never really knew that there was technically a doctor shortage until maybe a couple weeks ago when I read something online about it. And then ever since I read something, as you know, I just keep hearing more and more that there's a doctor shortage, which was a shock to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, I don't know, 5, 6 years, all I've heard is it's primary care. That's where the shortage is. It's not a field that people are interested in anymore. And it could be a generational thing, is what some people are saying, people want to do the fancier things. They want to go into orthopedics or be a heart surgeon. But now that I've been in the field a little bit longer, I'm seeing that cardiology is another big one, and it's not necessarily just a shortage, but the demand is also getting higher too. We talk about boomers coming into that retirement age.
Mhm.
That's an age group, for cardiology that's where they do most of their work. Not necessarily, but that's a huge part of their volume. As that demand grows and there's not enough cardiologists out there, it's an intensive training. But I have a lot of my friends who still work in that space and they're stressed out.
Yeah, I don't know any doctor I've ever met that's not very stressed out with his workload,
Yep.
stressed out with like the system, things like that. Why do you, Dr. Abbasi, think there's a doctor shortage, considering
Well,
you're in those
let's
shoes?
talk about the fact first. I've worked in many rural hospitals. In some of them, 70% of the doctors are first generation immigrant. People who did they're born somewhere else or they have been somewhere else and then they came to United States. And the fact that we have been in the United States covering our shortage of doctors with immigrant, this has been going on for almost ever. As a matter of fact, the Filipino doctors are big. They used to be big. Now, Indian doctor, Pakistani doctors, and so on, they have been really helping us to overcome our doctor shortage for many, many, many years. And and this is good for us because not only that we are covering our shortage of doctors, but because the requirements are so high, we get the best of the best. Imagine, we get forever, USA forever is getting the brightest, the most motivated, the most hardworking people of all the countries around the world. We are getting them here and they're contributing to our country. And by literally, they have to learn a language, they have to pass many tests. And even then, most of the time in the work situation, they are disadvantaged, meaning they have to be better than our average or our own doctors to have similar position and so on. And this is a fact. As immigrant, that is, Carlos, probably your parent. I know you are born here, but probably your parent had to deal with the same thing. You and that's nothing unusual. This has been good for us, and we have been covering that. But that becoming even now more difficult. And I'm going to tell you how I feel about that. The fact
Well,
is,
sorry, before you continue, I think it's really interesting that you say that because every week I have someone from outside of the US contacting me saying they want to do some type of fellowship or something with us, but it seems like the rules that the US puts in place, which are understandable, USMLE and different things like that, make it harder for a non-US surgeon or doctor to come here.
it
So,
is. It's
how
very
are
hard, and that enable us on our side to have the brightest of the brightest, the hardest working. They have to do twice as many. They already passed their medical license in their country, and many of those countries they're as good as we are. to be very clear about that.
Hmm.
We were in India. Those doctors, they have skills. Okay, we just started importing endoscopy from them in the spine. They have been doing it for 20 years and they are good at it. But if they come here, they have to go back to residency. They have to work a lot harder to be even at the same level. And the question is, for the primary, obviously, we had a path. We were always short, and this has been, you and I, we just watched a movie that about the Persian doctor who came to United States recently. It's called the Persian version, about how their life changed and what they had to go through. But once you understand that, you understand these people are motivated to be here, okay, and they're willing to work harder than anybody else. Now, as Carlos just said, but we didn't have much actually until 20 years ago. We didn't have much shortage of the specialists, but now we do. And it's an interesting thing I'm going to get into. Why are we now short of doctors across the board? Because until the regular, I would say just regular born and raised American, they had no interest to be primary care physicians somewhere in Kansas or rural Minnesota. They never were interested in that. So we could cover that. But regular born and raised American, they have less and less interest as well to be a specialist. Like
why?
in neurosurgery, I will come back to that, but in neurosurgery or spine, you notice that almost half of, if not more, of the people we connect to, they're first or second generation, foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Carlos, your observation is very correct that it was in primary and it wasn't a big deal in the specialist. And increasing the number of the people who need medical care is just one reason. And that's correct. But the fact is that, many people don't want to be a doctor anymore. One of the things my colleague, Dr. Kim, told me, he didn't want his children to be a doctor. And as a matter of fact, I told my son, Ali, he can do much better. And that's the point. I told him he can do much better than being a doctor. So imagine you are done with your K-12. Carlos, tell us, what does it take to be a doctor after K-12?
Yeah, after that, you got to get your bachelor's. So that's another 4-year pre-med, and then another 4 years of med school. And then after that, depending on what you want to do, you have residency. And then even after that, if you want to be a specialist, you're probably going to do another fellowship, and it might not stop there. You might have to do another fellowship. So, you're looking at another, 12 years of education on top?
Yeah. Well, at least. I did 23 years. After my high school, I did 23 years to be a neurosurgeon. To be a neurosurgeon, I wasn't even board certified. It took me 3 more years to be board certified, which is one of the fastest. In average neurosurgery, the neurosurgeon need about 5 to 7 years to be board certified. I did it in 3 years, and that was very fast. But if you add that to that, it was 26 years. Now, the statistical models are out there. Let's say you become a plumber, an electrician. Right out of high school, you go to a trade school and so on. If you see how much money you make and accumulate along the way and compare it to average doctor, you're better off to be an electrician than a doctor.
Yeah, especially if you look at the hours worked too.
I was just going to say that a lot. Like, I have a friend who's an ER doctor, and every day he's like, oh, I just got paid and it all went to my medical debt. It all went to my student debt.
Yeah, but those models are out there. Those models, you put them, now you say you go after high school to the trade school, and you start, being an electrician by the time you are 20 or so, and then you start accumulating money, and then if you set it in a hourly rate, meaning that, if an electrician would work the same hours that the doctor works, he's so much better off. Now, obviously, we only see these doctors that they get big Mercedes and so on, but they're mostly in their 40s and 50s already, and they still have a lots of debt. But those
And they're only driving their Mercedes to work.
yeah.
Yeah,
They're
that's all
only
they have time for.
yeah, they're only
That's
going
really
to
it.
work. They're
quality of the life,
Mm-hmm.
how much you earn. I mean, hand down, become an electrician, no question. Now, except that's not the reason. Money is not the reason you became a doctor. If money is the reason become a doctor, run those numbers. You're better to be a plumber.
Yeah, I think your
Who's
heart
the-
also needs to be in it too,
Yeah,
especially if you know you're going to take, 15, 25 plus years. You have to be motivated, very self-motivated, and it
yeah.
has to come from here. It really
yeah.
does.
Physician burnout is like a trending topic on LinkedIn every time I'm on LinkedIn.
And there's a joke actually. This joke was in German, but in the US it applies the same way. There's a neurosurgeon who has a problem with the plumbing, and he calls a plumber in. The plumber comes and works for half an hour or so, and write him a check or write him a bill for $500. And the neurosurgeon says, "What? You were here just for half an hour? I don't make $500 even in an hour." And the plumber says, "Yeah, when I was a neurosurgeon, I didn't used to make that much either." So now, um, now let's move from the financial side to the kind of workload and the stress that comes with the job and with this long education. You know, about 20 years ago, we had a law. The law was saying resident cannot work more than 80 hours a week and have to have 1 day off a week. But we couldn't make it, so we got exemption, so we could work 88 hours. But then it was expected from us that not really write our hours down, because we used to work 120 hours a week.
How many hours are in a week?
168. And we worked 120 of that in a week. Now,
I just don't think that that's safe for the patient. Like, as
that
a
was the
patient,
reason. That was the reason they brought it in. That was the reason they brought that. But no, this is not about residency and how hard we are working. This is about why we are short of doctors. Why regular American don't want to be a doctor anymore. Now, if a plumber can make more money in a lifelong, and and work less actually, and doesn't have to work that hard, and as well, guess what? You do a bad plumbing, what the worst happens?
go back and fix it. Get a bad review.
Yeah.
Now, as a doctor, you have one bad results. What happens?
You can lose your medical license. You can be done.
Yeah, well, and that is and then as well, the amount of the support doctors are getting has declined over years. We have become, healthcare in the United States has become an admin job. Doctors are just irrelevant. They are just commodities, and they are being dealt with as such. And that, in the last 20 years, has led to anybody can do something better is going to go and do something better. Very few, statistically, fewer people want to be a doctor.
I think also part of being a doctor is like that shininess of I'm a doctor. You know what I mean?
No,
But I
but
feel like that's going away too.
Yeah, that shininess is going away too, because I can tell you from my own experience. When I was in Stanford, California 25 years ago, if you would go out and try to date somebody and so on in a club and so on, if you would tell somebody you are a doctor, they just would walk away, because the alternatives are these 23-year-old multi-$100,000 bill or millionaires who are having a Ferrari because they have another job in IT tech, IT or finance and so on. The alternative, if you're a smart person, And you have to be a smart person to be a doctor to a certain degree. The alternatives are so big. You know what? Somebody was but actually boasting about, I used to be a doctor, but I'm now smarter. Now I hire doctors. That is how he was getting dates in
Hmm.
the in Bay Area. He had a small company doing a consulting thing and so on. So that shininess is long gone. And all of that leads to, why we are short of doctors. Okay. Now, like, let's there's still some shininess there.
For sure.
Okay. I mean, it's better. Average. It's usually it carries over more to say I'm a doctor than a plumber. But that plumber, if he's smart enough as the doctor, he's not just a plumber. He has a plumbing company. He makes more money than the doctor, absolutely, and has 5 vacation and so on and so forth. So, but where it has gotten us is that the shininess is diminished. The money, don't even try that for the money. Then amount of the stress is on your back, amount of the hours that you're working, and then um, the feeling. I'm telling you that Amanda, you talk to few doctors, and the burnout.
Hmm.
It seems like everybody is out there to get you, especially most of these big admin hospitals and so on. They look at the doctors as a commodity. They look at us as, so we are going to plan for 2 CTs, 1 MRIs, 5 surgical microscopes, and 2 surgeons for next 2 years. And the same way that then the microscope has its lifetime, and then they are done and they get a new one, they plan for surgeon exactly that way. And we surgeons, we do have feelings too. So
How many?
What? You're not robots?
How many? Yeah, two feelings.
two feelings. And we know it how we are dealt. And this is somebody that I trust, heard it firsthand, that there was a conference of the CEO of the hospitals, and one of them was boasting about that he hires surgeons, squeeze them like this bag of mayonnaise, and then throw them away, and they were all laughing. He heard. I trust that person. He heard it firsthand. That that is the that's the feeling many surgeons as well get, that we are a bag of mayonnaise. We get squeezed, everything get out of us, and once there's nothing left in us, they just move to the new bag of mayonnaise. So
So these problems are pretty obvious. I mean, it's pretty obvious that the admin's taking advantage of doctors and doctors are complaining about it, talking about it. But why it's been so long, why isn't there any change happening?
I'm seeing some change. I mean, from the place I came from, some of their doctors actually just started to unionize for some of these issues, and it was groundbreaking. And no one thought it was actually going to go through, but it did.
and then we talked about that, generally lots of new jobs are available for people who are very smart. They don't have to be a doctor to have a good life. Some of those new jobs is really draining all that pool that would be good doctors. What do you think what those jobs are, Carlos, that now people go to for last 40 years actually?
I'm starting to think programmers is probably a big one. Engineers.
Programmers in the last 20, 30 years, but finance in the last 50 years, a lot of smart people go to finance. Like we all hear about these traders and so on the Wall Street and so on, that they do 5 trades, work 3 hours a day, and have already a yacht and so on and so forth. And but in the last 30 years, programmers, yes, our life has become really IT driven thing. And but as well there are some new kind of things, like lots of smart people go from the high school directly, they become influencer. They go to YouTube. They go and do new kind of the jobs that didn't even exist 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah. Are
Right?
some of those sustainable though? Like
I
I
was
could
just
see
thinking that's not
programmers and
so
finance, that's not going to go anywhere, but influencers?
being an influencer, your timeline isn't as long
Well,
as being a doctor. You can be a doctor until you're 70, but the average influencer's timeline is less than 5 years.
but sometimes in that 5 years, they have everything to carry them the rest of their life. I
Yeah,
mean, there are ways.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are sometimes, and but you know, imagine for it to be a doctor. Yeah, maybe. Okay, let's put it again in perspective. There's somebody as an influencer makes few hundred thousand or few $1 million, and then with that they start something else, and they do it while
Mhm.
they are 23 years, 25 years old.
Yeah.
Yep.
You don't even start making. You're already accumulating debt until you're 35 as a doctor.
Yeah.
So, and your life expectancy after that, yes, you start getting better and better and better. But by the time the doctor is getting better and better and better, the influencer is already in Thailand having a 3 years vacation already. You see
True.
that here?
Yeah, that is very true because a lot of them will get famous and use that platform, like you said, to roll into something else. I mean, Jake Paul is one person who was an
Yeah.
influencer. Now, what is he, like an MMA fighter or something like
Yeah,
that?
he
But he
does
makes
fighting.
millions on
Yeah.
Yeah.
some of those fights.
And the numbers there are not actually, there are not too many people, but it's enough to reduce the pool for
Yeah.
doctors.
But even influencers, like I don't want to talk about influencers right now because this is about doctors, but even influencers that is getting oversaturated, it's getting more and more difficult to make good amounts of money as an influencer because there's so many of them. But I
Yeah.
want to actually just talk about being a doctor
Yeah, but
and or healthcare in general.
yeah, but it's about all the other things that people can do,
Yeah.
which, if you look at the face value, is smarter than going to be a doctor.
But at the end of the day, we're always going to need doctors, and our generations are getting older and older. We're treating ourselves pretty terribly consistently. We're eating awful foods. We're choosing to stay inside versus going outside and being active. So we're getting more obese. We're getting more health issues in general. So we will always need doctors. I want to talk about what are some ways to that in general we can cut back on the doctor shortage
But,
or like fix
but
that situation.
we have to at least address the last reason why we are short of doctors. We haven't addressed all the issues. So
Is
we
it because
addressed the
doctors are each
financial.
other's worst enemy?
Well, no, we addressed the financial issue, the life work or work balance. We
Mhm.
talked about that the pool is getting smaller, and the last one, and that obviously the situation and so on. And then the last thing is burn out, meaning a doctor, that somebody who could be a doctor another 10, 20 years, decide enough is enough. I'm done.
Mhm.
Can you tell me if some of your experience, because you have been dealing with lots of doctors lately, Amanda, and you're just that sort of. I had a feeling that that was for you an eye opening. Why are these doctors who are good at it don't want to be a doctor anymore? What did you find out?
Yeah, it actually is very eye-opening for me. I found out I think I found out like a mix of things. I don't want to beat a dead horse because we do talk about this every episode, I feel like, but I noticed that doctors, like we said before, are really getting taken advantage of by the system. So just to kind of visualize it, I imagine a doctor or like a young person is really excited to change the world. So they go to med school, they study so hard, they put literally their entire life, they've kind of even unfortunately have to put their family to the side because they're so focused on changing something in the world. But every time you want to change something, you have to face everyone who doesn't want to change it. And it seems like there's more people that don't want to change it. And also, these people that don't want to change it, we mentioned finances, they're getting financial benefits by not changing it.
Mhm.
So I think that's one of the biggest things that I've noticed is these doctors are fighting each other and they're each other's worst enemy.
No, there is something that that these admins, they are very smart sometimes, especially in big hospitals. They don't go and make a doctor's life living hell. They send other doctors to do that job for them.
Mm-hmm.
And doctors are gladly to do that as long as they get, okay, it's not me. I help you. Just don't beat me. I go beat anybody else. But no, but I want to hear from you. What did the doctors tell you? Literally, I take you to these doctors and we talk about that. What have you heard? Concrete things in the last 12 months about the doctors. What make them stop wanting to be
Well,
doctors?
they just don't want to fight that stuff. They don't want to submit a surgery, like say I'm going to have this surgery, and then the insurance denies it. And now they have to do a peer-to-peer to explain to someone with a business degree why their patient who's going paralyzed needs to have this surgery. That's one of the things. I met a doctor recently who's not even a doctor anymore. He's actually he was a surgeon. Now he doesn't even want to do that. Instead, he like pretty much finds places for other surgeons to go and work because he doesn't want to deal with the admin anymore.
Almost every single of them has told us, I'm tired of this bullshit.
Always, they're tired of it.
Now, there is a bigger danger coming in the horizon. And I'm going to talk about and that the danger is real, and that's something that may break us. You remember the part that 70% of our doctors in one of these hospitals I go and work are foreigners.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for a very long time, we have been covering our shortage of doctors with people from other countries. Many of those people are going back to their own country now.
Yeah, we know a few.
We know a few, and that is because the situation has become so unsustainable. They say, I have better opportunities as a doctor somewhere else. And that is not a big deal now. But if a neurosurgeon decides he's better off in India than in the United States, we are in for a big surprise. We are in for, if something has to change, otherwise we are in big, big trouble in the United States.
I think the United States does know that that's a big problem. I think they know people are going back, and obviously the doctor shortage is pretty clear. You can see it by numbers. But Tennessee, like not too long ago, changed their rules so then it's easier for foreign doctors to come here and start working. Hopefully, more and more states will do that, because if they don't, why would someone in India, they already did they're already a surgeon there. Why would they come here? They can and redo their entire residency. Why would they do that?
I mean, that's
Well,
a big question I had was, why are they coming here? I mean, we talk about all the factors of why people don't want to be doctors anymore. Why do we still have people coming here to the United States?
because they have a better life for themselves and their family, or at least that has been until now. The children, they can have a better future and so on. But these other countries now are growing to a point that the children can have like many of, let's be practical and concrete. Like our friend doctor who's a neurosurgeon here in the United States, originally from India, just moved about a year and a half, 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
a year and a half ago back to India, because the kids can go to better schools because his life quality is better. He maybe doesn't earn as much money here, but he pays less tax.
Hmm.
The children can go now to a technical school in India, which is at par with MIT. So their opportunities are opening it up, and this reverse immigration, it's called, is a big deal. And it may be very, very dangerous for us in US. And that is why we understand it. Not everybody, obviously, but many people understand that. And that is why we are making it easier for them to come and practice here, because we know this is a big deal. This is dangerous for us. So we covered all the reason we are short of doctors. But one of the things that many of
I
these
think
doctors are telling us,
there's one more reason actually, I think.
go ahead.
Do you remember how many people got into your med school? How many?
In my med school in Germany, we were about 500.
And then
In
how many? That's how many started, right? Do you know how many ended? How many
I do not
graduated?
know that, but generally we know that almost across the board, about one third quit.
And then you have to think every step there's going to be less and less people that are completing it. It does make sense that it's such a difficult thing to complete all these years, but I almost feel like they're making it really hard for people to be able to keep up with that. And you do have to be able to keep up with that because then when you become a doctor, your life is just as miserable. But working 120 hours a week, how can that even be sustainable? Like, I
If
think,
you love it, how much, Amanda? You see my life. How many hours do I work? What do you think?
but
You know it.
are you going to tell me right now that you love it?
No, I love to work as a doctor.
Yeah.
See, I love my doctor work. I could do that day and night because that for me is not a job, is a lifestyle. This is just my life. I did surgery in Crookston 2 days ago on somebody who nobody else could help. There is no more satisfaction that you do this difficult case and patient wakes up, the leg pain is gone, and he take your hand and thank you for that. There's no more satisfaction of that in life. There are people who go to Africa and work 130 hours to do what satisfies their heart. And so on, people like there are right now people in Gaza, doctors, nurses in Gaza, who are American. They are there under horrible situation. They are helping people. They don't see that I work 120 hours a week. That is
Yeah.
for them is not a job. And that's what I always say. And people just ignore that sometimes. They say, if you see, somebody told me 20 years ago, neurosurgery is a most horrible job, but the best life you can ever have, depending on how you see it. So I'm not tired of working 120 hours, but you know what I'm tired of.
I know. And that's exactly what I'm saying.
And what we see more and more is that the doctors feel they lose authority, they lose autonomy, they don't matter anymore. That's what burns us down. That is what I can tell you. And that is why Carlos, when you and we talk about, we are creating this environment that doctors matter again. And that is, I think, that the strength we are building. Certainly unionizing, that's one way of making sure doctors matter again. That you cannot just be steamrolled over. And you know what we call them, right? We call them suits. Okay, I don't want to tell you you're a suit, Carlos, because
Carlos isn't.
no, Carlos is not a suit. But our life is run by um, forces beyond our control, and we don't matter anymore. So one way to matter, unionize. And you're absolutely right, Amanda. Doctors are worst enemy of each other. They sort of get schadenfreude, that's the German word for getting happy if somebody else get in trouble. And they even, they're the henchmen of this big system now. But the another work is doctors want to be independent. In some states, it is illegal for a hospital to hire a doctor. I have been in a situation where I had to have my priority could be hospital's interest or patient's interest, and they are not always the same. And you get in trouble if you put patient's interest first. And and that's a big deal for us. We do things, and we can. There are lots of practical, real, situation. I can't tell you what that is, but it's beyond this. But it ends up all with that we become like an employee of a hospital. We lose our autonomy, we lose our independency, and that is a trend. For last 40 years, doctors' pay has gone down and hospital pays has gone up. What that means, as an independent doctor, you cannot even survive. They have put it, the hospitals have better lobbies than the doctors, because you just said that doctors are their own worst enemy. So hospital got more and more pay, whereas doctors got less and less pay. Our so-called professional fees are not anymore enough to have a practice. And Carlos can tell you all about that. If we just put our professional fees in place, you cannot pay the people you need to literally run a practice. So independent medical practices have been dying. And then they get absorbed by the hospital, they get run over by the hospitals or healthcare or big healthcare systems and so on and so forth. And this will have dire consequences for our country, because less and less people want to be a doctor. Now, something is changing though. There are few doctors say enough is enough, like what we are doing. We want to be independent, so we create a new method to help the patient, to treat the patient with the ways that they don't have to be in the hospital. And that will break the monopoly of these healthcare systems. How much do you think they will like that we can now do things that they're not part of it, that something that could be only done in the hospital, now we can do it in our own surgery center, in the office, because there are dozen, or not a dozen, but a lot of surgeon doctors that they say, enough is enough. I'm going to keep my autonomy no matter what, but I'm going to provide a care that is so much less risky that I can do it in my office or in my surgery center. We know lots of things about how much hospital like that, right?
Yeah, I was just gonna say they do not like that.
But we are successful that. And then what do we need here? We need the right kind of doctors. We need the right kind of administrators. We need help. I'm actually optimistic about that trend that has been going on for the last 40 years, that independent doctors are going away and our numbers are going down and so on. I'm hoping with what we are doing in the next 10 years, at least for spine, being an independent surgeon is a thing, and people want to be that. Like Carlos, guess what percentage of lumbar spinal fusions are done in a surgery center setting?
Right now, I would,
In the United States,
mid-teens.
About 2%. 2%.
Wow.
That's it?
2% of the lumbar spinal fusions are done in surgery center, because regular surgery is so invasive, it can be only done in the hospital. Medicare doesn't even have a code for surgery for spinal fusion in a surgery center, because they don't know even it's possible. So, meaning that if a spinal surgeon want to do fusion, has to go to the hospital. But from our numbers, we can do 60 to 70% of our spinal fusion in our surgery center. Medically, we have 10 years record. Now, you see that there? Now we are going to be able to move that outside of the hospital. So I'm hoping this trend, these new technologies enable us to move in the right direction, that doctors can keep their independent nature. I think few things as well have to come. In some states, it is illegal for the hospital to hire a surgeon. Now, they trick that. They create the physician groups. They own the physician group and then dictate their terms to them indirectly, like in California or in Oregon. But more or less, I think this is going to be a conscious, a very deliberate consideration in our society to make being a doctor again attractive for young, intelligent, driven people. We have to do something actively about it.
What I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong, is do you kind of think that we're a little bit too far gone to repair that
No,
relationship between
I'm
doctors and
optimistic.
hospital?
I'm
Because
optimistic.
what I'm hearing from you is that you think that the best solution is to do things in a surgery center.
Well, you see, we always will need hospitals, but the problem with the hospital has been in the last 40 years, and that's as well as statistics. There is a curve that the statistic on a plot that shows how much more doctors do we have now compared to 1970s. So, and what is the growth of the doctors? Like doctors, we have about 70%, Carlos, more doctors compared to 1970s. Guess how many more administrators we have now compared to 1970s?
Ooh, around 200%.
40,000%. For, we have 40 times more administrators now in 1970s. We have about 70% more doctors now. No, that's not even doctors and the nurses, providers. We have 70 to 80% more providers now compared to 1970s, but we have 40 times more. So 0.7 to 40 more administrators. We have a joke that we have administrators who just administer administrators, So, but do we need that much? Talking about the money in the healthcare, do we need that many? I think there's again opening. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and we are doing it. Okay, how many scribes did we have last year, and how many scribes do we have now?
Yeah, we went from like 9 to 2.
So I'm optimistic. See, the new technology, the new ways of doing things are going to enable us to give the autonomy back to the doctors. At least in surgery, in spine surgery, we are working on that. What we are working on, our artificial intelligence, enable us to comply with all these goddamn rules that half of them makes no sense anymore, but still not to, break the bank. And there are going to have to be major changes, even if it hurts my heart. We have to get rid of some unnecessary positions, jobs that makes it impossible for doctors to have keep their independency. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
like for 100 years ago, we had a job. It was called elevator operator, and another job was called typesetter. Do you guys know what they are?
I don't know what a typesetter
Well,
is.
like, is elevator person like a bellman?
Well, elevator person, every elevator had to hire somebody who is there, push the buttons, and close on doors in a proper order, because otherwise people would get hurt.
Hmm.
Typesetter is that somebody who would literally would go and put those letters together to make a print.
Okay, well, yeah,
Yeah.
We don't know what they are anymore, right?
right.
Yeah.
And that we are better for it. We are not worse for it. The same way in the healthcare, we have a lot of jobs that really we don't really need to have, and by not having them, we are going to keep the good doctors practicing maybe 10 more years. Okay.
I feel like, in my eyes, based on what I know, the biggest solution to the doctor shortage would have to be, I don't know how to do it at all, but finding a way to like mend these relationships between the different doctors. I think that there's too much of like a scarcity mindset. I think one of the ways that we could do this is, I'm going to word this very like plainly, but make it not allowed to have specific contracts with hospitals, like Medtronic having a contract saying you need to have this amount of money made for Medtronic a year. Then now these doctors working for Medtronic have this incentive. I don't think that that should even be allowed. And I think that taking that away could actually help to mend the relationship between admin and the
Yeah, there are
doctors.
lots of hidden agendas. That's absolutely true. You see, we doctors, we never learn the business of being a doctor. We truly want to help people. it just gives us joy. Like, you paint, it gives you joy. What's your hobby, Carlos?
Well, music, playing with my dog.
My hobby is taking care of patient. Okay, so we come in and then we see what you see in the surface is not all.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lots of hidden agenda. I mean, it's almost hard not to become a conspiracy theorist once you see that actual patient care is the least important thing when you get into that.
It is.
I feel like we've heard that too from like different experts we've talked to and advisors that there are a lot of other things that are a priority when it comes to decision makers.
Money is number one. Patient care is like last.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's funny, but it's true.
Well, but we can make an impact. Okay, I'm an optimist, still optimist. Now, Carlos, I want you to know, if we are going to bring a surgeon to our thing, what we are putting together, what do you say? Why they should come and join us, and why should they work with us and be part of us rather than somewhere else? I mean, what do we do different?
I would say we'd take their input and actually put it into practice. It's not just here's a system, you fit in it, you're a cog. It's what's working for you, what isn't, what do we need to do to change to make it so you can just be a doctor. And like you said, most doctors don't see the business side, but making sure we have a transparent relationship of, this is what I need from you to make sure you can do your best to help patients. And for people like me, admins, just break down those barriers and make more efficient processes and identify where we can make improvements.
You just let them be a doctor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You don't overwhelm them with things that they've never ever wanted to do. And when you say it is about patient safety, you goddamn mean it. But because this is a big thing in the healthcare, you go and do the most horrendous thing and you say it is for patient safety. You go literally promote a procedure that kills the patient. You have the statistic and you come back and say it is for patient safety. It has become like such a ridiculous thing but if you are truly for patient safety, now patient is sleeping or not there and so on, what is the best indicator that you're doing the right thing for the patient? You help the person who has the highest incentive to have a good outcome. Who are they? Doctors. Okay? So see what they do, not what they say. Who has the highest incentive? Who has the highest reward or punishment if patient has good versus bad outcome? Doctors. Okay, so what that means is that if you say you're doing this and that for patient safety, it's an empty word. It's not even worth the paper you're writing it on unless you follow up on that. You help the person who has the highest skin in the game, in the actual patient's outcome. Okay, so doctors by proxy are the people who deliver that care. So by you taking care of the doctors, letting them be a doctor, then that is the true way of being for patient safety. Like, make sure they are not so overloaded that they don't get sleep. That is how you help them. Make sure that not 70% of their time is spent on paperwork, and then they have to go exhausted, see a patient, and after 5 minutes, make it sure that patient know they're done with them, and they have to walk out because other patient is going to be angry with them, and so on and so forth. If you are for patient safety, you do things that makes it easier for the doctors to provide care to the patient. Everything else is just empty word. But that something has been weaponized in the healthcare, these empty words for patient safety. Okay, like you go and a doctor who's going to walk to the room and do surgery, you go and hit them with 10 things that take the attention away from the patient, and you say, I'm doing it for patient safety. No, it's not for patient safety. It is for anything else but patient safety. Because if it was for patient safety, you would make the path for the doctors to provide the care easier, not harder. So, and that is what we do. We make it. We want doctors, not administrators. We want them concentrate on the patient. We want to take their headache away, and that is.
We want everyone who has a job to have value in their job. I think everyone who's working towards the same cause is equally as important. You can't do surgery without the janitor cleaning it first, but
Mhm.
you don't need to over administrate, or we don't. And that's one thing that sets us apart for sure.
Now, I'm going to be the doctor's side here. I never go to janitor's closet and ask him how to organize his supplies.
Exactly.
But that is how we feel. We doctors, that's how we feel. You come to our ORs and you tell us why and how and if we should do something or not. You step on our toes. And with you, I mean the general, what this healthcare system is. You step on our toes. You come to our room. You tell us what to do on our turf. It is our place. This is where I have to concentrate on patient care. And then they cover it on their thing. I'm doing it for patient safety. So, and that a huge burnout comes from that. So
Definitely.
I think we covered the lots of things here, but obviously I cannot talk about this subject without complaining, and I think I did complain enough though.
Well, thank you guys for watching. Today we talked about why do we have a doctor shortage. I'm Amanda Armagast.
I'm Carlos Taboo.
And I'm Dr. Abbasi for Essence. Thank you for joining us.